Um, what's going on, everybody? We're live. It's 2 o'clock. I am joined by the wonderful Alex Spiegel. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks. Happy to be
Okay.
here.
I'm happy to have you here. So, all right, we gotta get pumped because compliance can feel a little stuffy, right? So we gotta loosen up a little bit, okay? Uh, so 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 for the folks that are here, why don't you hey Robert, how you doing, man? For the folks that are here, why don't you toss something in the chat? Uh Let us know where you're at. Let us know how your day's going. How many inches or centimeters of snow did you get over the last 72 hours? That's the real question. How about you, Alex? Did you get snow?
We got a lot of snow, enough that my 2-year-old is home 2 days in a row, so it's been fun.
Yeah. They canceled school for my son Sunday morning. They canceled church. I've never seen church canceled over snow. Um man, let's see. We got from like Saturday night, I don't know, midnight, 2 in the morning, somewhere around there, until Sunday at 8. Our driveway only had what seemed to be like 1 or 2 inches, but then like everywhere around us had like 6 to 15 inches. So I'm thinking that like our property just has really great, I don't know, wind. It's because our driveway was fine. But yeah, the roads everywhere, like even our road was terrible. So just outside Winchester, Virginia, 4 inches of snow, 3 inches of sleet. The federal government closed Monday and Tuesday. No government? Are you saying it was anarchy yesterday and today and I didn't even know it, Robert? I'm sorry, that is an unfortunately timed joke with everything going on. Let's just skip past that one. Uh Apparently there's no government. All right. Well, we'll get there. We'll get some government soon enough, okay? Um Chris, sunny and 80, St. Pete Beach all weekend. I have no words. Heather, how about you? Well, how much snow did you get? The world must know. And for those of you watching the replay of this on the YouTubes, you should also put a comment up on YouTube and let us know how much snow you got. I think the world needs to know about Snowmageddon January 2026. It needs to be recorded for all time or until YouTube is taken down, whichever one happens first. So, this is good. This is good. Alex, you said your daughter's home.
My son, yeah.
Son, I'm sorry. Uh, I don't know what I was thinking.
It's all
Um,
good. He's napping in the next room.
Napping is good. Now, what are the chances he stays napping through the whole webinar?
Not good. But don't worry, I always have business continuity, disaster recovery, and incident response planning, so
So
got
you have a
backups to
nanny.
my backups.
You have a nanny, is what I heard.
Unfortunately, no,
Okay.
but I have a mom and a husband that are very supportive.
Like I said, a nanny.
Exactly.
They don't like to know who the nanny is. The session is not dropping for anyone else, I don't think, Chris. I've noticed you keep dropping in and out. And I also know that earlier today I was having some trouble with Zoom, but I think it could be one of those like you're just the unlucky one that's connected to that uh, Amazon or Microsoft server that Zoom is using. So we're gonna keep the show going here. So, Alex, you why are you running Choice Cyber Solutions? What kind of background do you have in cyber?
I don't have one. I just make it up as I go. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Um, I've been doing this for about 10 years. My background is primarily in operations and systems and processes in the MSP, IT, turned into cyber and cyber compliance world. Um, uh, we owned and operated an MSP, well, my business partner for 21 years. I worked there for a few years. We spun off to just teach security and compliance to MSPs, quickly learned that they wanted us to do it for them. And that was 10 years ago. We started as just risk assessments, and now it's mostly continuous compliance services and a white glove compliance service. Um,
Mhm.
we have we've grown to have over 20 team members in that time. A lot of leadership training, a lot of cybersecurity schooling and training, um, and a lot of learning on the fly. That's what entrepreneurship is.
I mean, I think that's how we all have done it, right? So, the learning on the fly part, that is, I'm gonna change my ISO setting. There we go. Now I don't look like I'm using the sun 3 feet away from me as my key light. Um, so that's a really awesome background. I have an interesting background as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Taylor. I do webinars here at Alternative Payments. And before this, you may have seen me on Rocket MSP, which is my podcast company that I own. And man, I feel like that character from The Simpsons. You may know me from uh, and before that, I ran in MSP for over a decade. I've been an IT professional for almost 25 years. So I feel old. I make this joke every webinar, and it never change. It's never going to change. I'm sorry. I feel older every webinar, at least a day or two older. All right. So today we're going to talk about why 2026 compliance changes are a big opportunity for MSPs. So let's kind of just dive into, I don't know, I guess everything.
Great.
Um so first and foremost, what kind of what kind of regulation changes are we worried about right now?
I mean, it depends on the industry that the MSP typically works with.
Okay.
But I would say that the biggest changing factors or the biggest culprits in my world are CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification for Department of Defense contractors. Um, Always cybersecurity best practice framework. So ISO 27001, which is the International Best Practices Framework, NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, the US Space Standard. Um, and then there's proposed HIPAA changes um, for this year, but we're unsure if or when they're going to pass. Um,
Mm.
and then uh, the biggest new one in my world is called TISAX. It's an automobile industry compliance based on ISO 27001.
Cool. All right. So we're probably going to spend, I would say, half ish of this webinar talking about CMMC, maybe less, it depends. I do have some questions planned around HIPAA, protecting your own MSP, practical application, that type of stuff. Okay. So we've got a lot planned here. Um, However, my questions don't have to be the only ones that get asked. So if you have a question that you want asked, you can either pop it in the chat, you can pop it into the Q&A, and I will keep an eye out and I will weave your question in along with mine, okay? So, let's dive in, let's get started. So, what's what is different about, like, 2026 compared to even 2 years ago when it comes to compliance?
So many things. Um, I think the biggest factor that we're seeing is that the MSP or the vendors are now being held accountable to whatever the standards are of their clients. So
Uh-oh. Did you guys lose me?
their regulatory compliance, um, figure out that perfect solution, but still protect their own house and have all their ducks in a row and be ready for audit or questioning at any time.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of like noise in the MSP space. And I'm not even going to point fingers. You guys can all make your own assumptions. Because I'm not even talking about anyone in particular. So what should MSPs actually be paying attention to versus like what's just vendor hype?
I feel like MSP should really be paying attention to compliance leaders, not vendors. It's the same as cybersecurity, right? You go into a trade show and there's 100 security vendors, but you really need all these different layers to truly protect a client. It's similar when it comes to this.
Mhm.
Trying to put the whole picture together versus the vendors that are these individual layers. Um, just figuring out that balance or that right partner or that right method to get to compliance is just definitely more difficult. The client's budget always has to be front and center. We're trying to mold around their workflow and their regulatory compliance requirements. So we don't have to completely uproot their entire business model. Um, and there's not really a perfect solution that's one size fits all. So I'd say don't believe that there's any solution is your perfect solution.
Well, that's disappointing. Um you're talking to MSPs every day. What's what's like the biggest misconception that you find yourself correcting?
An assessment is easy,
Yeah.
or supporting a client through an audit or an assessment is easy. It requires work, labor on part of the MSP, my team, if we're the outsourced compliance resources, allocating, personnel budget resources on the client side, the MSP side. Um, I would say that the biggest challenge that we're hearing from assessors also is that the MSP is one of the big reasons that clients are struggling or not passing audits.
All right. Now, I do see a question about your business. We'll get to that one later because we're going to stick to the compliance stuff for right now, okay? So let's dig into CMMC. Phase 2 hits in October. Who show of hands, who's excited? CMMC Phase 2 in October. Uh Alex, you didn't raise your hand.
Oh,
All right, so for MSPs who've been following this maybe just loosely, what's actually changing? Like, what's different from phase one?
so that's hard for me because I've been in CMMC 2.0 for so long already. Um, well, 1.0 was really criticized for being overly complex, too expensive, hard to scale, especially for these smaller subcontractors. So my average client is work makes all the screws for Boeing airplanes. They're not Boeing. They don't have Boeing resources. Um, so the goals of the 2.0 are reduce costs and friction, align with existing standards like NIST 800-171 and resources that already exist. Focus on the enforcement of any real risk and protecting the controlled and classified information, that's UI. Um, plans of action and milestone POAMs are back. They were banned for a while. So that allows there to be some work being done. Um, Depending on the contract and different things, it can be up to 80% of work completed, so 20% incomplete in that plan of action and milestones. Clarified roles and responsibilities. The list really goes on and on. But the client or customer responsibility matrices and how that all plays in, I'd say, is the biggest change in my world. Whether that came
Yeah.
in with 2.0 or more recently, again, it's all kind of fuzzy since I've been in this 2.0 land for well over a year and a half. Um, but it identifies who's responsible for what. So, from every vendor and resource to the MSP to every tool that or software that could potentially touch
Mhm.
this controlled unclassified information.
So let's set some definitions because I'm not a compliance junkie, okay?
Mhm.
So uh I'll easily get confused if we don't do this.
Yes, please stop
So
me.
no, it's okay. So you're talking about CMMC 2.0. I asked about CMMC Phase 2. So
Oh,
phase 2 is like regardless of if it's CMMC 1.0, 2.0, whatever. Phase 2 is supposed to go live this year, right?
yes, it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
October of this year.
Yes. So what changes from phase 1 to phase 2?
I'm
That's not a trick
honestly
question, I swear.
I'm honestly not 100% sure. Um,
Okay.
and I don't want to give you false information. I can tell you what I'm seeing in my world and what needs to be done. So, I think by October, there's going to be a lot of compliance requirements, and you're going to see in all of these contracts with DoD subcontractors that they have to have CMMC in place. We're seeing it few and far between now, but more and more every day. So I think by October we're going to see it everywhere. I think that's really what's going to be this next phase is implementation throughout. And really holding it as a standard and making sure that if an audit is necessary, that the audit is complete and holding accountability to those plans of actions and milestones. That is what's to come.
Gotcha. So my understanding is phase 2, and by my understanding, I mean what AI told me with 12 seconds of research. Phase 2 is where third-party level 2 certifications become mandatory for applicable contracts, and DIBCAC assessed level 3 CMMC status may be required at DoD's discretion. So the
So,
practical impact is self-assessment's not going to cut it anymore, right?
in most cases, yes. It depends what types of CUI they handle. They haven't fully defined exactly what that means yet. But November or October or that phase 2 is really not as important as what the contract says. So, like, a lot of my clients already have contracts that require these mandatory C3 PAO assessments. A C3 PAO is a CMMC assessor. And it's really dependent on what that DoD contract or what that DoD subcontractor contract states. So by November of this year, we expect to see it everywhere, like I was saying, but we're already seeing it today. So that's full compliance with the NIST 800, 171, 110 controls with the CMMC enforcement on top of it.
I was never a fan of C3PAOs. I found them all a little annoying. I was a bigger fan of R2D2. So, little Star Wars humor for you guys. Wake up, everyone. Wake up. Here we go. All right. So, if CMMC is built on NIST 800-171, like why why does that matter, first of all? And what should MSPs understand about that relationship between NIST 800-171, and CMMC.
So think of CMMC as like the enforcer. So NIST 800-171 is like the rule book. That's like the standard that you're following. And CMMC is that enforcement on top of it. So it doesn't really introduce any new security ideas. It enforces the NIST 800-171 security principles that already exist. It takes the exact same, especially for level two, which is my world, that same 110 controls in that NIST 800-171, and just adds a level of assessment, like we were talking about with the C3PAO, and enforcement rigor. So it adds a layer of complexity and a requirement.
Gotcha. So 800-171, like, you could be doing that and there would be like no rules saying you have to. And then even were there like laws ever at any point that said you have to follow 800-171?
Yes.
Okay. And then were those self-audited or were they
Yes.
audited third party?
And you had to upload a score to um, the SPRS system, is the government system. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone in and that score has been strongly inaccurate. And
Yeah.
we've even seen,
Well, it's because
um,
I get to just create the score and upload it, right?
well, DOJ audits say a little differently.
Well,
I
but you know what I'm
have,
like, if it's a self-assessment, like it's really only as good as the self-assessor can be trusted.
yes, but the Department of Justice is very much involved, and
Okay.
they reward whistleblowers. Um, so I've seen on more than one occasion a client come to me after being in deep water in a
Oh,
situation like this, and having to help them. Um, Specifically, one that had been a client for many years, but had started this process 2, 3 years without us. And we didn't know for the 2 or 3 years they were with us that they were in this deep water. They were fined millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's not something that you want to play with. Um,
yeah.
there's ways to get those contracts with being truthful. You can write, letters of intent, have those plans of actions and milestones, take portions of the projects based on what you're equipped to handle today. Um, but yes, I would not suggest just uploading whatever you want because the DOJ is cracking down.
Okay. Now, CMMC, the big deal is CUI, right?
Controlled unclassified information.
What about CCI?
Not familiar with that one.
Controlled classified information? I just made it up, I'm not gonna lie. Uh,
There's two big primary things in my world. One is called FCI. That is like the contracts themselves, or the
See,
invoices,
I
the
thought that
payment.
was freaking classified information, but maybe not freaking at the beginning.
I'm pretty sure the F stands for federal. Um, and
Okay.
then the controlled unclassified information is the sensitive information that a company would have. So, whether it's a CAD drawing of the actual airplane for those screws or another resource that basically, if it got out, if China were to get it, it would be a big problem. That's how I like to logically think of CUI. There's a lot of nuances, but we'll skip those
Yeah.
for today.
Okay. So what what does the scope of an MSP's involvement have to do with CUI? Well, that's a good place to go.
Um, So, if they're trying to protect their own environment with CMMC, it's always comes down to their Microsoft environment and their RMM tool. On the
Okay.
client side, it's whatever they would have access to that has CUI. So a lot of times it's almost always the RMM tool and managing their Microsoft environment, but it could definitely be other things as well. It depends. Do they have an enclave? Are they just running in Microsoft GCC High? Who's managing all of that? Who's the administrators? There's a lot of things, but almost always the RMM tool and the Microsoft environment are two ways that they probably touch CUI.
Okay. So is there like exposure that MSPs have to worry about? Like, let's say I'm managing a client's environment. Where am I touching the CUI? Is it my RMM? Is it my backups? Is it because I put a floppy disk in their computer and copy asterisk to a colon backslash? What are we worrying about here?
For sure that one, because
Okay.
it's 2026 and, I'm just concerned about floppy disks in general.
Well, don't worry.
Um,
It only holds 1.44 megabytes. So,
so, they're now part of that client audit, right? So, not only is it how their RMM tool itself, it's how they use that RMM tool and documenting the processes and then being able to show and prove that. Um They're very much looking for, FedRAMP compliant tools or tools that
mhm.
have these shared responsibility matrices that show you exactly how the tool could potentially touch or store that controlled unclassified information and what resources need to be turned off or on in order to do that.
So I'm hearing people question about whether MSPs need to get like CMM certified themselves or if they should just be part of their client's audit. How do you think through that decision?
So for me, um, I I would say plus or minus 5, is probably the break even point if I were like thinking about it from like a business owner perspective. I would say 5 clients is probably the break even point where it would financially make sense because then you
Gotcha.
wouldn't have to go through their audit with them. You wouldn't have to do any of the paperwork or things that would be required for the audit. But before that, I don't think financially the juice is always worth the squeeze.
How much is an audit?
Ballpark 50K.
Oh, is that all?
Uh huh.
Okay,
And
cool.
that's
Sign
for
me
a
up.
smaller MSP. We have clients that have to budget 6 figures, because
Oh,
they have
wow.
many locations. It can get
Well, I
very
guess that makes
expensive,
sense.
and it's 40 hours, an entire week minimum, and that's if everything goes well.
Things always go well on the
No,
first attempt.
never, especially they're not running from the same rule book. It's impossible for things to always go well.
Look, I worked at Taco Bell. I know what it was like to have the health inspector come in. We never got dinged once, ever. I
This is
never
exactly
lie
the
ever,
same.
guys. Um, this no, I totally understand. It's gonna be completely different from having like, some kind of federal, like state agency come in and audit. I totally understand. There's a ton of scrutiny. Like you said, DOJ's involved. So uh everything is scrutinized with not just a magnifying glass, but a microscope.
Yeah. Those tools also matter. So just because they're not going through CMMC compliance doesn't mean that they don't have to have the right resources in place for their clients.
Mm,
But again, there's nuances, right? Like enclaves and different things that could make a tool acceptable. But I definitely suggest, at least for your first one, partnering with an expert. Um,
yeah.
it can be very difficult, but that's what we do. We get the client audit ready and help the MSP through the process.
Well, now let's say I've only got 3 clients or even just 1 client. The goal is to keep getting more. If I'm already dealing with this for 1, I might as well keep going, right? So today, I don't have to get my own audit, but I still have to be what you might call audit ready because you're still part of the client's
Yeah.
audit, right? So, what what does that look like? What do they have to have documented and ready for a client audit?
So they have to prove that their house is in order, and that they're taking care of their client environment. They have the right tools and resources in place, and how or where they would potentially touch that CUI or controlled and classified information, and typically have policies or procedures outlining how they're not going to do that.
Okay. In just a second, guys, well, I say a second, but in a few minutes, we're going to talk about getting the MSP's house in order. Okay. I've got a few more questions around CMMC though. Um, we already talked about the cost. We talked about getting audit ready.
Oh, that's
How
not the cost. That's the cost of an audit. Sometimes they need all new tools. The
oh,
cost and time investment for an MSP is tremendous.
I
Um,
mean, it can't be that bad.
I mean, the audit alone is 50K if you pass the first time and have no hiccups.
I test really well. I'm sure
Okay,
I'll pass the first time.
great.
Yeah, I usually don't even have to study. So, um,
Um, so they do not. Somebody just put in the chat. Oh, Robert, hi. An ESP does an external service provider is what the MSP is considered, and they do not need to be CMMC level two.
that's
Um,
a plus.
but
Well,
I don't
that
see a
means the test is
world
even
where they
easier.
wouldn't transmit CUI in some capacity for a client unless they were in a very specific enclave and had a way to ensure that there was no CUI on that computer when you logged in with your RMM tool, or there was no CUI in that computer when you sent your tech out to do on site services.
See, and
Um,
I think that's the problem is, MSPs love to argue um nuance, right? And they love to argue definitions. And I don't know, I think I would just leave the definition arguing to the attorneys. Because the last thing you want is to be like, no, well, this doesn't say anything about if I just look at their screen. This says process or transmit. I didn't transmit the file. I transmitted their screen. They just happened to look at the file. That's not
Mhm.
my fault. You know what I mean? Like that just sounds like the kind of nuance that somebody in the DOJ is really looking to punch somebody with. uh I'm holding a fist, but just replace this in your mind. Pretend I have a budget for this, right? And this has turned into a fine.
yeah.
Tens of thousands, millions, whatever it is, right? um
So there's so
does
many
an
if
ms
then that's, right? So like, okay, so you don't have an RMM tool for that client and you just
yeah,
back up to their GCC high environment. How are you
yeah,
patching? How are you updating? How are you knowing when you need patches and updates without an
that's a good
RMM
point.
tool?
Well,
Um,
couldn't one argue that you're using a tool like Intune for that?
are you?
Well, I don't
Setting that
know.
up
So
for
I'm
each
I'm
client
trying to
can be a
I'm trying
bear.
to argue on behalf of Robert here. He says, does an MSP really need to remote into devices that have CUI? I think MSPs need to rethink how they provide support for CMMC clients. And I think you're right, Robert. I'd be curious, how would you answer all those questions for Alex? Like, how are you providing support? What happens if somebody needs help? If you aren't able to do remote support, what do you do? And maybe you're not like maybe if you're doing CMMC stuff for a client, are you usually like the L1 tech support? Oh, my printer isn't working. I don't know the answer to that. Only you MSPs know the answer to that. Maybe Alex knows based on what she sees other MSPs doing, but only you know how you're supporting your clients, right? So I don't know. Do you need to remote into your client? Maybe.
That's also why there's no one size fits all, right? And why
Yeah.
every client is unique and every situation is different. And that's why we do what we do. Um, some that might be the answer. Others have a 500-person environment and it's not possible. It just depends on the service being offered and what you can and can't do within that service delivery.
Yeah. Well, so, I tried to graze over the, cost and time investment piece because I thought I thought we had already covered that with the
Yeah.
$50,000 audit. My next question was going to be what surprises people about the process. I would say the cost and time involvement might be what
Yeah,
surprises
100%.
people.
That is up there. 100%.
What other surprises do you think I'm sorry, what other things do you think surprise most MSPs that you are working with? Well, maybe not that you are working with, because I bet you prepare them to not be surprised.
Yeah, but they still come to me not aware in a lot of
Yeah, that's
cases,
true.
right? Unless it's,
Yeah.
I have some partners where we have 12 clients together. The 12th is less of a surprise, but number one, there's usually still a surprise and education process. I would say that time commitment on the MSP side and the client side is always a surprise. Like you can hire a company like mine, we can do as much as humanly possible, but it's still going to be
The
at
MSP has to
least,
do a bunch of stuff.
yeah. I'd say probably 100 hours of work to get through an audit. On average, between the client and the MSP, I'd say 160 hours is probably a good rough guesstimate. Um,
And are we talking man hours or like what like okay, so there's the CMMC to clarify, were we talking about the auditor and the
no, just
MSP?
the time commitment in general. The audit
Okay.
itself is for at least 40 hours.
Yeah.
Um, Leading up to that, the month before is at least 80 hours of our time, but we meet with our clients twice a month. So that's 2 hours right there. We typically meet with our MSP partners once or twice a month. So that's another hour or two there. And then the work between meetings, we try to limit it at 6 hours for both the MSP and the client. So like 3-ish hours a week. But when you're headed into an audit, that's not always possible, especially when
Wow.
you're doing R&D because you don't have the product, or you're writing the help desk process of how you're helping clients for the first time. Now, the second time you do it, you already have all that stuff done. So you'll be able to crush your labor and costs. But the first time, it's very time consuming. I think the other one is the length of time. Like, you can't just snap your fingers and be compliant. Sometimes you have to uproot entire systems and workflows, and the client takes time to make decisions. And most of them have no idea how their CUI flows. So that discovery alone could take a couple of months.
So if I were to do all the work, I do it all right, I pass my compliance. Let's just say for argument's sake, I'm level 2 certified with one client, right? Because I'm not level 2 certified myself. I'm doing an assessment through the client. Now I get my second client and they do their audit. And I have to get assessed all over again. There's a chance that this different assessor is not going to like something that I provide, right?
They are not rowing the boat in the same direction. Every assessor that we have dealt with interprets things a bit differently. Um, the new assessor guidelines and like courses were due in April of last year. So hopefully we'll see them sooner rather than later to get them at least rowing the boat in the same direction. But they're following the same rule book, so that's helpful. But they interpret some nuances a bit differently.
So what happens if I do the audit with client A, uh they pass me, client B comes around, they require me to make some changes. Client B passes me. What do I have to do now with my stuff for client A? That's where I get confused with this type of stuff when it's regulatory, right?
Um, Chances are what you're doing for A is met A's requirements and you're probably okay. But you're also making the assumption that, their contracts aren't going to change in other ways. Like we're already starting to see in Estate 100 Revision 3, CMMC is built on Revision 2.
Mhm.
So these companies are always evolving and changing. Their compliance requirements are always evolving and changing based on their business development practices. So there may or may not be a change. And back to Robert's point, it's like, did you customize a solution for that one client? Or are we streamlining one for all? Because if that's the case, then you probably have to update some of the documentation based on the changes you made for the entire CMMC client environment.
Mm. Well, I don't love your responses because
Would you rather be lied to you?
sorta. Uh, no, I don't want you to lie to me. You know what I do want though? I want all of my Zoom windows to appear. There we go. Hey, I'm going to pause here for just a second. We've covered a lot of ground on CMMC and we're not done yet. All right. We've got HIPAA changes to dig into, how MSPs should think about their own compliance posture. We've got questions from the crowd here. We're even going to dig into some practical how to assess your client base and what services you can realistically offer today if time permits, but we're low on time. So here's the thing, everything we're talking about today comes down to one idea. MSPs who want to grow have to get serious about where they spend their time. Compliance is one of those areas where you can really stand out, but you can't really do that if you're buried in manual work. Manual work doesn't move the needle. So that's why I've created the perfect segue into what we do here at Alternative Payments. So let me take 2 minutes. I'm going to tell you how we help MSPs get time back. We'll then do a poll. We'll dive into something with Alex, and then we'll do one last poll, and then we'll go back into more education. Uh, Alternative Payments is a payment platform built specifically for MSPs. We help you get paid faster and boost your cash flow without adding more work to your plate. Over 1,000 MSPs trust us to handle their payments. This slide is out of date. Um, you'll see some big names on the screen that you may recognize, like Valiant, Sage IT, Team Logic IT, Hayden, 5K Technical Services. These are MSPs who decided they didn't want to chase invoices anymore. They wanted that time back for things that actually grow their business. One of the ways we do that is through a secure branded client portal. Your clients will log in, they'll see your logo, your brand, feels like part of your business because it is. From the portal, clients can view and pay all their outstanding invoices, manage their own payment methods, whether it's ACH or credit card. And here's the big one, they can enable auto pay. That means you're not asking them to sign up, they can just do it. And once they do, you get paid on time every time. Now, the portal is just the front end. Behind the scenes is where the real magic is happening. We integrate with your PSA and your accounting software. We create one automated workflow from invoice all the way to reconciliation. Whether it's Halo PSA, ConnectWise, Autotasks, SuperOps, QuickBooks, Zero, Sage, FreshBooks, the list goes on. Here's what it looks like. An invoice gets created in your PSA. We send it to your client automatically, or we do it for you. You can set up the software. It's all software. When it's due, we'll charge the client if they're on auto pay. When the payment clears, we mark the invoice paid in your PSA in the accounting software. When we deposit the funds, we create the deposit entry and handle the fees correctly. All you have to do is match your bank feed to the entries we have already created. That is like full accounts receivable automation. You're not chasing invoices, you're not manually entering payments. You're not reconciling deposits at the end of the month. You're not arguing with a payment vendor because you don't understand the invoice that you're looking at with all of these weird credit card processing fees. It just works. So, you're probably wondering what this means for your MSPs. First, you reclaim a bunch of time. We're talking about eliminating over 80% of the manual labor that comes with invoicing, collections, and reconciliation. That's hours every month you get back. Second, you can lower your costs. Our platform can help MSPs save around 3% on credit card processing fees, and that adds up fast. Third, you get paid a whole lot faster. When clients are on auto pay and invoices go out automatically, cash is going to hit your bank account sooner. That's better for your cash flow and better for your stress levels. So, if any of this makes you think, oh man, my MSP, we need that. I'm gonna make this real easy. I'm gonna launch a poll, and you please let us know. Um, our onboarding team can help migrate all of your existing customer payment data to our platform without breaking PCI compliance. Because hey, we're talking about compliance today, right? So yeah, everything's PCI compliant, and it's real easy to migrate. So if this is something that you think could help your MSP, let us know in the poll. Thank you very much, Alex. Uh, one person asked Alex, what makes you different than other companies, other compliance companies, when it comes to us as an MSP?
So we were founded and built from an MSP for the MSP. I think that that is always our number one differentiator. But we also work with 20 plus compliances um, to really help from any MSP in most industries. Um, we try to take the overwhelming out of it. So if it's too overwhelming for you, or um, we have this expertise. It's our job to make you look good as your partner and help you build new revenue streams and monthly recurring revenue. We have really strong roots in the industry, and love being and happy to be a resource in the MSP community. Um, but yeah, the 20 plus privacy and compliance frameworks, I think, is the biggest differentiator, and a lot of different industries.
I said that sounds pretty awesome. Is there anything else that you think MSPs should know about Choice Cyber Solutions?
It's very much a white glove compliance service. We deal with very complex situations and nuances, and are very good at what we do. It's not a software, it is a service. Um, we hold our partners and clients' hands to make it as easy as possible on both of them.
Great. Well, I just launched our final poll for the day. Alex, I don't think I launched the first poll for the day. Oops. Uh, it's okay. That one was not as consequential as these two. So, if you're interested in a conversation with Alex to see how her team can help your MSP with compliance, that poll is up. If you could please take a moment to answer, that would be appreciated. All right. So, I have 11 minutes and 30 questions. How we want. so,
um,
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Tabiso's question first, and then I will ask some questions I have around uh HIPAA, like one or two, and then we'll go into protecting the MSP's house. Sound good?
yes.
All right. So Tabiso, I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Um, Tabiso is in South Africa. From
Oh,
your experience, Alex, how should MSPs in emerging markets position compliance changes for 2026? Not as a cost center, but as a business enabler for SMEs who are already financially constrained. This is a passion channel for me, but I feel a little out of my depth.
If we're talking business owner to business owner, it's always about risk management, protecting their house and their environment and helping them sleep better at night. Um, at the end of the day, cyber compliance puts a structure around cybersecurity. You're helping them win new business in a lot of cases, differentiate themselves from their competitors, um, and helping them sleep better at night.
Awesome. So HIPAA changes have been talked about for years. When's the last time, like what year did they last make changes to HIPAA? Like 13 years ago?
Not recently.
Yeah. Maybe 23 years ago. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
last like substantial change that really changed like the cyber side, I believe was in 2006, which is terrifying. But there
That's
have
20 years
been
ago.
changes since then. Just not on the
Think of all the changes that have happened in your MSP. Like just think or even for you, Alex. 2006, you were in elementary school
I graduated from
and
high school. I'm not as young as I look.
okay, that's fair. Um all right. So I was trying to be nice. With
I appreciate it.
all right, these changes have been talked about for years, right? Uh they've been begged for years. So where are we actually at with the proposed updates? What's the timeline looking like?
So this would be the first substantial update since 2013. Um, I I don't know. Um,
Is it going to
I want
happen?
this just as much as everyone else.
Okay.
But, there's all of these hospital systems and providers that have formally called on Health and Human Services to withdraw or revise the security
That's
rule because of
ridiculous.
cost and implementation concerns. Here's the important thing at the end of the day: always pair HIPAA in 2026 with a cybersecurity best practice framework, and you'll already mostly be there. They aligned a lot of it to NIST CSF. My favorite is ISO 27001 because of the huge governance component. And to me, the people are always going to be the weakest link. So the governance is what's going to protect you the most. Um,
The
but the
people.
cybersecurity tasks that are being introduced are bare bones basics in my compliance world that should have already been there.
Okay. All right. So NIST CSF, you prefer ISO or ISO. I always call it ISO. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Other
ISO.
people, other, okay. Uh, 27001. Speaking of ISO, we've been talking a lot about client compliance, but what about the MSP's own business, right? So what framework do you recommend MSPs consider for themselves?
So if you are looking to prove something to your clients and differentiate yourself through marketing, ISO 27001 is auditable for way less than CMMC. And you can have a certificate that proves your compliance. If that is not important to you and just protecting your house at the end of the day is, I helped create a framework for GTIA called the Cybersecurity Trust Mark that kind of combines CIS, NIST CSF, ISO 27001 to really protect the MSP, but it doesn't have that brand recognition that an ISO 27001 does.
So it sounds like you're suggesting we do something differently than what we're proposing to our clients.
The business is different than your clients, right? So like
Okay.
they might have to
Well, my
protect
my
you
clients are all special snowflakes too, if you ask them. So
more. Um, but like your client might be focused on their CUI, right? And you don't have
mhm,
CUI
that's fair.
in your business. You might touch your clients. You have to protect your house in that way. but putting in NIST 800-171 doesn't protect your business at the end of
Okay.
the day.
Okay. Now, if an MSP wanted to get their own house in order first, what's like the starting point or like the minimum baseline? You should definitely have all this crap handled.
I think it's always easiest to pick a cybersecurity best practices framework. Choose CIS if nothing else. It's not my favorite because it's missing the governance, but it's very clearly written, and any tech can meet those requirements, and they have amazing
Yeah.
resources. Um, but the list of where you can start today with what you have where you are could be the same for your house or your clients. Um, Implement a cybersecurity best practice framework that has guidance and resources to go with it. Build an asset and data inventory for yourself and all of your clients. For your endpoints, your servers, your cloud services. Make sure that you have that full asset inventory, and a list of administrators is always a good idea also. Map your data flows. So understand that confidential data that you have internally. Chances are it's only HR data, especially if they're using your payment resources. Um, but max would be also those payment resources, or maybe some client confidential information or data, passwords, that kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
and then implement data classification labels, even if it's just public, internal, confidential to start. I'm not asking for CUI types out of the gate. Just keep it simple. Outline client shared responsibility matrices. I don't mean the CMMC kind. I mean clearly define who's responsible for what, so that you're not taken to court over something that they thought you were responsible for that you were not responsible for. Assign that clear ownership and escalation path, for everywhere possible to protect your organization. If clients are refusing security, have them sign a document saying that they're refusing. So not if, when they have an incident, you're not responsible.
Love that. Love
Um,
that.
Partner with a compliance services company that specializes in partnering with MSPs and serving their clients, to help you grow in that wheelhouse without having to add a ton of resources and overhead.
I need like a bell for anytime someone does a shameless plug. That'd be great, you know?
That's my
Um,
first and only one.
no, it's okay. It's okay. No, I think it would be more fun that way with the
It
bell.
would. It would. We got to get you a bell.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put up something here on the screen here. It is a HIPAA change resource. But before I do, before Alex goes over that, I just want to let you guys know we're in our final couple minutes. If you have questions, put them in the chat now. Otherwise, there is a possibility your question will never be answered ever. Go.
You're also welcome to contact me directly after. Happy to answer anything.
Yes.
But this is just the overview of the proposed changes from last year that would go into effect this year. Um, if you scroll down, I don't know if you can see something different on your screen, but you'll see a lot of it's aligned with NIST CSF,
Mhm.
and or any other cybersecurity best practice framework, like an ISO 27001. Um, Incident response planning is really, really, really important, um, if you want to avoid headaches. Um, Ongoing documentation and review, and then the technical side of security strengthening. Vulnerability scans, EDR versus like security 1.0 antivirus software, which if you're doing that, please upgrade to an EDR. More advanced logging and monitoring tools, but that we've always been using to answer the logging and monitoring controls. So you probably have to, just because it makes life easier.
It does make life easier. And for those of you who are going, man, this is a really nice looking document. I want that. Well, the good news is you're going to get it because that is leave behind that we promised to give you just for registering. So everyone's gonna get a copy of this as well as the recording, and I'm sure there will be other things that we include in that email as well. But you'll get an email from Alternative Payments, one from me, tomorrow morning, afternoon, um, with all of that. Lionel wants to know, how can MSPs ethically convert once-off audit findings into ongoing managed services without blurring independence, being weirdly too salesy, or creating compliance conflicts?
Let me be the bad guy.
Oh, okay.
That's really
That
where
does
we
actually
shine,
work.
right? Because
That
I
does
say jump,
work really
they
well,
say
yeah.
how high, right? And then the MSP only looks like they never had to meet that requirement before. I'd say a third party expert is always a really easy way to do that.
Yeah, I like that. Um, things always go better when you've got, like, the good cop, bad cop thing happening. Um, if you've got a compliance officer or a compliance, uh, just something, right? Somebody who deals with compliance all day long, that comes in and says, "You're doing all this stuff wrong. This is what you should be doing." And then the MSP's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. Like, that really sucks. Here, we can do all of this stuff for you." And then you
Exactly.
just, "Here you go. Here's the proposal." Um,
Exactly. And
Cha-ching.
I basically say, in order to be compliant, you have to sign that proposal.
Yeah.
At which point their higher ups are usually already on board with, and they
Yeah.
need to keep or get a contract or have another serious business driver from the top.
And that's a really powerful statement too. If you have someone like Alex that says, "Well, you want to be compliant, you need to do this." And then the MSP says, "Yeah, we do all of that. Here's the proposal. It's only however many thousands of dollars a month or a year if you want to prepay the whole thing. We don't mind." Um, and shameless plug, we can help you guys get all of that billing stuff taken care of. And I recommend setting up auto pay in your contract, and we can even help you with some of that stuff as well.
Amazing.
There, there it is, everybody. No more questions, Alex. I feel really good about this.
Yeah. It was great. Next time we'll have to keep CMMC on the side, so that I touch on anything else. But clearly, that's where I spend 70+% of my time right now.
I think CMMC is probably the biggest. It's that big bad evil guy right now, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I think that was, time well spent, and I prepared them for it. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, I told them we're going to spend half the time today on CMMC for sure. So, all right, everybody. Our next webinar will be next week. We'll include information about that in the replay email you receive tomorrow. I hope to see you all then. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.